InvestorIdeas.com podcast.
Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of InvestorIdeas.com podcast. Today's podcast is sponsored by Cannabis Swiss Corporation, trading on the OTC as CSUI, a fully licensed cannabis cultivation and distribution company in Switzerland for recreational tobacco products and medical CBD oils. And Cannabis Swiss products are laboratory tested to ensure that access to standardized, safe, and consistent product. And Cannabis Swiss Corp currently sells via distribution network of Swiss retailers and online shops under the retail brand Alpine Cannabis. In today's podcast, we're going to be looking at a few public company announcements, looking at Cannabis Swiss Corp as well, trading on the OTC as CSUI, Bev Canada Enterprises Incorporated, trading on the CSE as Bev, and the OTCQB as BVNNF. Also looking at Chiron Life Sciences Corporation, trading on the TSXV Venture as KHRN, and the OTCQX as KHRNF. And Cureleaf Holdings Incorporated, trading on the CSE as Cura, and the OTCQX as CURLF, as well as Pure Harvest Corporate Group Incorporated, trading on the OTC as PHCG. So today, first starting with Cannabis Swiss Corporation, who announced the first product from its Swiss for Life CBD product line created for the upcoming launch on Shopify. Now, the new brand concept is based in the company's mission to improve the quality of life of its customers by providing them with high-grade CBD products. Now, the Swiss for Life product will be 1 fluid ounce or 30 milliliters, available in 2 flavors, creme de la menthe and cherry vanilla. And it will be a broad spectrum oil with different CBD concentrations of 1,500 milligrams, 2,500 milligrams, and 3,500 milligrams. And all of the oil products will include granulated droppers for accurate dosing, so consumers will have the ability to choose the dosage that best suits them and their personally. Now, Swiss for Life Broad Spectrum Oil will contain 0% THC, which means it's effectively perform therapeutic functions without causing adverse reactions. And high-quality hemp seed oil will be the carrier of the new product, saving all the important nutrients, including proteins, vitamins, fatty acids, and minerals. Omega-3, 6, and 9 is a complex of the most important unsaturated fatty acids for the human health. COO Alan Perrick explained, since the human body does not produce these substances on its own, it needs their regular supply from other sources to maintain one's physical and mental health. Now, Swiss for Life's broad spectrum oil will be made a USA hemp only and will contain no THC, GMO, or gluten, and all the products will be manufactured by an FDA registered entity, Silver Shadow Ventures LLC, and will be tested by the independent third-party laboratory, though these products will not gain FDA approval and they will not be used for medical uses. So Cannabis Swiss Corporation launching a couple new products on their Shopify program. I do like that they're focusing on higher dosage versions of CBD products. It's a big issue today, and also having the droppers available to keep the doses consistent. These are two things that a lot of CBD companies have overlooked. Obviously, a lot more now are paying attention to this, and most of them have adopted this type of delivery platform. But even still, it's nice to see that, again, some of these companies entering into the space are paying attention to that and obviously adapting to what this environment should be. Again, anything below sort of 1,000 milligrams in a bottle is kind of a waste of time for a CBD product. And again, not having any sort of instructions or ability to drop it or to have precise dosage also makes the CBD product mostly useless. Especially if people are trying to use this for as part of their daily regimen. If you can't really control or understand how much of this product you're going to be taking, oftentimes you're going to be taking too much or too little and not really getting the effects you want. So I do think that that's something that all these companies, any CBD product coming out there, need to be focusing on, is having some form of dosage and, again, having an effective amount of CBD in their products. So hopefully they'll have a successful launch of that, and it'll be interesting to see as well how they compete within the US CBD space, as it is extremely competitive. Looking next at Bev Canada Enterprises, who announced today that its wholly owned subsidiary Pure Therapy Products Corporation has generated 1.53 million Canadian in unaudited gross revenue over the first 9 months of 2020, and a net profit of $104,000. Now, Pure Therapy has also acquired more than 3,000 new customers over this same period, and the acquisition will now provide Bev Canada with a steady and growing revenue stream. Now, recently acquired by Bev Canada, Pure Therapy is a direct-to-consumer e-commerce company selling a range of natural health products, including nutraceutical and hemp-based cannabis oil products throughout North America and Western Europe. And Pure Therapy's extensive catalog of formulations are proprietary and professionally crafted based on market demand and product quality. And every product manufactured is third-party tested for purity and manufactured in GMP certified facilities. Now, our goal with Pure Therapy acquisition was to stimulate strong revenue growth and accelerate our quarter four sales by adding new products, investing in customer acquisition and retention programs, and leveraging the platform's current mix of subscription-based and traditional sales revenue models to build a strong recurring revenue stream, noted John Campbell, the Chief Strategic Officer for BevCanna. Now, we're very pleased with the progress that we've made in our first month of ownership, and we're on track to have a very strong fourth quarter of 2021. Now, the Pure Therapy acquisition has also provided BevCanna with a proven e-commerce brand and platform to expand and launch its own proprietary hemp-based products directly into the global health and wellness market, including the burgeoning U.S. CBD market. And the brand has a substantial and existing customer base and a powerful direct sales platform. And Pure Therapy brings an extensive list of approximately 23,000 customers that's acquired since 2017, and the brand has achieved unaudited calendar year 2019 gross revenues of $4.78 million and a net profit of $22 million. Now, capital constraints on the previous ownership resulted in interim revenue shortfall in the early 2020 for the Pure Therapy brand, but BevCanna's purchase and subsequent strategic investments and improvements have positioned the platform to be on track to deliver strong revenue in the fourth quarter with a forecasted annualized run rate of $6 million. And BevCanna projects immediate growth in the brand beyond 2020, achieved through new product integration and by accelerating the growth of its existing natural health products line, leveraging the extensive e-commerce marketing expertise of the existing Pure Therapy team, and the company forecasts a gross revenue of $7.28 million and a net profit of $0.26 million for 2021. Of $26 million for 2021. So BevCanna Enterprises, obviously now with this acquisition of Pure Therapy products, obviously a smart acquisition as it's given them a pretty steady revenue stream and looks to only increase that revenue over time. Also gives them a lot of access through the e-commerce platform to get into the health and wellness market. They already have some beverages that would be well marked for that, and I'm sure they're going to be using that to expand their own product portfolios moving forward. But we've seen this from a few companies over the last year, which is a lot of the cannabis companies have been focused on creating stability, basically to sort of shore up investor confidence for most of these companies that have had rough and tumble years. And obviously there's a lot of influx and unexpected sort of craziness within the cannabis space. I don't think anyone was anticipating how COVID would change things, both positively and negatively. Obviously, the year before, there was lots of issues with vaping and a bunch of other things going on with Cannabis 2.0 products. There's always going to be some sort of crazy inconsistencies showing up here. So now what you're starting to see from most of these companies is them looking for small acquisitions or at least strategic acquisitions or plans and partnerships to have steady revenue streams and at least a little bit more consistency, having different verticals so that we're not trapped in one avenue. If that has some sort of crazy news cycle that goes on and fucks everything up for a couple of months, they're not then stuck there dealing with those problems. So I think that's what you're going to see from most of these companies continuing throughout this year is going to be strategies to have different verticals, different revenue streams, and a little bit more stability within their companies. So that way, when there are these random influxes of high sales, low sales, and everywhere in between, they can sort of weather that storm and continue on. So it does seem to be a very smart play for them. And this, again, Pure Therapy acquisition has obviously worked out and will probably continue to help BevCanna expand their products into different markets and hopefully bring them a little bit of the expertise from both companies to combine together. Looking next at Chiron Life Sciences Corporation, who provided a corporate update on its global medical cannabis operations, including an acceleration growth of 450% in its Colombian medical cannabis prescriptions, the first sales in the UK, and entry into the Peruvian market. We've been saying for some time that we're in the execution phase of our business strategy. Measurable developments over recent weeks substantiate our approach, and importantly, the ability for our team to execute on the plan. Now, despite the impact of the global pandemic, our medical cannabis sales are seeing accelerated growth in Colombia with more than 3,500 prescriptions now filled. In addition, we supplied medical cannabis to Project 21 participants in the UK and began medical cannabis sales in Peru. And further, as a result of our timely adoption of technology-based solutions, clinic consultations returned to pre-pandemic monthly levels in September, commented Alvaro Torres, Chiron CEO and director. So some of their recent achievements and sort of updates included, again, more than 3,500 medical cannabis prescriptions filled. Medical cannabis prescriptions increased by over 450% in the third quarter compared to the second quarter of 2020. Chiron clinics exceeded 9,000 monthly patient consultations in September, marking a return of pre-pandemic monthly levels. Chiron was declared a national strategic project by the government of Colombia in September, accelerating its ability to register and introduce new SKUs in the medical cannabis and consumer packaged good categories. And Chiron became the first company to sell medical cannabis in Peru, introducing the new CBD brand Alexin TM, sold under its previously announced agreement with Farmacia Universal, the largest compounding pharmacy in Peru. So, looking at Chiron Life Sciences, obviously reaching a lot of achievements this year. If you've listened to any of the podcasts before, you know I've talked about this company a lot and have been saying for several months now that this year is probably going to be a pretty monumental year for them, and that a lot of the dominoes seem to be falling into place as far as their strategies and acquisitions and movement plans. And now you're starting to see actual implementation of all these strategies and a lot of milestones achieved. I think that they're doing really, really well, and I think you're only going to continue to see the success story of them over the next year to 2 years. I think that they've very much planned a slow and steady approach strategy to how their company is developed, and now it's starting to pay off. Obviously, for the first year or so, there wasn't a lot of movement from Chiron Life Sciences, just a lot of potential expectation. And now you're starting to see all of that pay off. Again, they're really doing well within the Latin American markets. They're now starting to expand into Europe. And I do think that at some point they're going to have the opportunity to expand into both Canada, the US, and other markets as well. They're going to basically looking at Latin America, one of the key advantages they have is high quality product, low cost product, and a lot more ease when it comes to overall movement and working with the government, at least for Chiron Life Sciences. Not every company in Colombia, and that's why there's a limited amount of companies, but the ones that have been succeeding there, whether it's Chiron Life Sciences or Pharmaciello or One World Pharma, a lot of those companies have been doing a very good and diligent job of working with their governments to make sure that they are meeting all the standards and requirements needed. And those standards and requirements are actually much higher and go above and beyond what we're even seeing sometimes in the EU. So the advantage they're going to have is that, looking at some of these Canadian and US producers who have a lot of inconsistencies with how their setups look, there's a lot more bureaucratic nonsense to deal with, both with setting up your operations and expanding your operations. Especially looking at the US, you're going by a state setup, which is going to be difficult when you're trying to expand into a global industry. And I think that that's something that Chiron Life Sciences very much well positioned themselves for, is the global cannabis industry, especially looking at the medical cannabis market side of things, and also providing even like white label product and hemp biomass and extract product to the global market. I think is going to be a huge opportunity for them. Again, they've positioned themselves well for this. So I think over the next year to 2 years, once you see more markets open up, once you see more importing and exporting actually start to become a reality, that's when you're going to start to see a lot of these companies coming out of Latin America as well as Israel and other parts of the world start to really show up as key players in the global cannabis market. And that's where you're going to see some difficulties for the Canadian and US based producers who, again, cannot really compete on the same price points as well as even the skilled labor that's in these countries. Israel is one of the most obvious examples. That's a country that's had cannabis research continuing since, the 60s and 50s. And they really have had that uninterrupted knowledge and research teams working on these products. So for them, their growers, their people working within these teams are miles ahead skill level wise of what you have in some of the US and Canadian companies. And that's going to definitely pay off for them. Not only that, but the fact that, again, there's going to be low cost to their growing, and they're going to have better growing conditions for more crops per year. Same thing with Latin America. So I think that what you're going to start to see is, again, give it a year to 2 years, and you're going to start to see more and more of the dominoes fall into place for companies like Chiron Life Sciences, and eventually start to see them be a real player within the global cannabis space. Looking next at Cureleaf Holdings Incorporated, who unveiled the Cureleaf Nano Drops today, a new addition to its lineup of products utilizing nano emulsion technology. Now, Cureleaf Nano Drops are unique in their versatility and offer a great alternative for customers interested in a faster onset and more efficient dosing product, said Joe Byan, the president of Cureleaf. Now, after the successful launch of Cureleaf sublingual tablets, we are excited to expand our portfolio of products utilizing this technology to bring customers more options when it comes to their cannabis choices. Now, unlike oil-based medium-chain triglyceride or MCT tinctures, Cureleaf Nano Drops are formulated to immediately dissolve directly in the mouth. And the science behind Cureleaf nanodrops is a major upgrade to the traditional MCTs as they deliver a faster onset and shorter duration due to the water-soluble nature of the technology. Now, Cureleaf nanodrops join the company's first to Florida market sublingual tablets, providing patients another way to confidently manage their treatment plan. And they'll be available in slim 30 milliliter tincture bottles and deliver a precise 5 milligram THC dose per 1 milliliter drop. And drops are available unflavored or in lime or grapefruit varieties. And obviously, again, Cureleaf's Select brand recently reached 1 million in sales in just 1 month in Florida. Almost all the Cureleaf products they've been launching within their markets have done really, really well. And I think they've done a good job of only putting out products there that are hitting the consistency and quality standards that they're looking for. This is a real big difficulty with lots of the companies launching products into either the US or Canadian markets, is you're seeing lots of inconsistency. You're seeing products that come out that are amazing and products that come out that are pieces of shit. And the problem is when you have both coming out all the time, what you're going to have is inconsistent consumer perception of your brands. Cureleaf has done a really good job of only really releasing products that have hit the quality standards they're looking for and have been well received. And they have also waited and maybe been a little bit slower with releasing some of these products. But the benefit now is they've built up a little bit of trust with their brand, and consumers are now more interested in expecting these products. I think the Cureleaf Nano Drops are going to sell just as aggressively as most of the other select brands that Cureleaf has launched in, whether it's in Florida or in any other of the markets they're going into. So again, some of the states they're going to be launching into will be in Arizona, California, Maine, Massachusetts, and Nevada, and again, also in Florida, which is where they're going to be starting the launch. But I do think that that's their type of strategy is something to pay attention to within this industry, is focusing on, again, select market launches and also limited product launches. So not filling out SKUs just to have your products in store, but having, again, a bunch of those SKUs be poorly received, but to instead only be releasing the products that are actually going to hit these standards and quality controls that you're really looking for and your company stands behind. Because again, we've seen this with lots of the larger producers, for instance, Aurora, Canopy, Afria, who have had products from every range of amazing to complete garbage go out onto the market. And because of that, they've had a lot of difficulties in maintaining customer confidence. Lastly, today, looking at Pure Harvest Group, who is an emerging cannabis and hemp CBD holding company, who announced it's acquired all the assets of Solar Cultivation Technologies Incorporated, a Denver-based solar company focused on bringing solar and cannabis industry together in an effort to minimize the industry's carbon footprint. And this acquisition will allow PHCG to implement SCT's solar storage and intelligent distribution technology throughout its operations, in addition to providing these technologies to other operators in the cannabis industry. We're extremely excited to acquire SCT's assets and technology and are confident that this acquisition will position PHCG to become an environmental leader within the cannabis space, said Matt Gregorick, the CEO of Pure Harvest Corporate Group. We understand that the industry's carbon footprint is a tremendous issue, and we believe that we now have the tools to make this serious contribution towards sustainability in the cannabis industry. I've been very impressed with Pure Harvest as we've worked with them to create its solar-powered dispensary in Demont, said Nick Brait, the CEO of Solar Cultivation Technologies. Naturally, we leapt at the opportunity to become a part of Pure Harvest's family of companies and add our abilities and technology to expanding portfolio of assets. And we believe that our two companies are well aligned to have the potential to make a dramatic impact on the cannabis industry's energy requirements and carbon emissions. And we've heard this story before, unfortunately. There's been lots of small-scale developments like this where you've seen again, the most obvious example where we had dozens of interviews talking about it has been with Sing and having their solar platform. And again, that's just been really a different revenue model for them. They haven't really even had a lot of implementation between cannabis businesses and solar. And there's been a lot of these announcements in the past where there's been cannabis companies either acquiring a solar company, having a partnership with them, or the opposite. We've had some solar come into the cannabis space as well and do an acquisition of a smaller cannabis company. That's been a little bit more rare, but still is something that's been developing. And I think that, again, this is one of these key issues for the cannabis industry that is still very far away from mass adoption. The the biggest complaints today are the carbon footprint that this industry creates, especially because most of the people in support of the cannabis industry, especially from a consumer side, are very pro-green in lots of ways and looking for more environmentally friendly products and ways of doing business. Unfortunately, the cannabis industry still produces a tremendous amount of waste and garbage. The hemp biomass from most of these companies isn't being used for anything. Even most of them have only slightly implemented using it for instance, mash or food for some farmers in the area, for compost, for lots of different uses. Almost 0% being used for textiles or any sort of secondary products that could be developed, which is another very discouraging reality about the cannabis industry. And another big part of it has been water and energy consumption. Most of these companies consume huge amounts of water and consume huge amounts of energy. I don't think you're going to have some sort of mass solar adoption. I think it's also too difficult to implement, in that the amount of solar panels that would need to be built for any of these facilities to actually be energy efficient with the solar panels, or at least even mostly reliant on solar energy, would be borderline impossible. And the space that you would take up would basically detract from the point of being environmental in the first place. You would have huge swaths of land taken away for usable crops or even just plant life, and now used for solar panels. But I do think what you're going to see is, again, small scale adoption of this. We're using some solar, some renewable energy, some form of recycling of the hemp biomass. And really what we have to look at is companies that are just paying attention to all this. One of the best interviews that we had, or one of my favorites, was a company that really saw how to get around a lot of these obstacles without actually having some sort of mass adoption of renewable energy, was with Occam. If you listen to that interview and you check out that company, they've done a lot of really smart implementations of very basic technology where they have a lot of moisture trackers throughout their facility to keep track of the water. Their water filtration system is a cyclical setup, so that way all the water being used in the plants and then drained through is then being recycled through their system and used over again. Same thing with their energy. They have lots of different measurements to keep control of how much they're using, how to reduce that, and how to have the most efficient use. And I think that type of strategy is going to be sort of what can be mass adopted and scaled up and massively implemented into the cannabis industry, which is the understanding and sort of efficient use of energy and water. But I do think that it's a little bit idealistic to assume that larger companies, especially with 1 million square foot grow facilities, are going to suddenly also completely implement sustainable and recycling water solutions and green energy solutions to those facilities after they've already been built. I think that what you're going to see is, hopefully for the newer cannabis companies, they will adopt some of these strategies. But it is discouraging to see that even though we've seen lots of announcements like this with solar and cannabis coming together, there still is very little actual implementation of this within the industry. That's all for today's podcast. And once again, today's podcast was sponsored by Cannabis Swiss Corporation, trading on the OTC as CSUI, a fully licensed cannabis cultivation and distribution company in Switzerland for recreational tobacco products and medical CBD oils. That's all for today's podcast. Podcast is now a certified word trademark on the blockchain through Cognate Incorporated CM certification. InvestorIdeas.com podcasts are also available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play Music, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, and TuneIn. If you'd like to be a guest or sponsor of this podcast, please contact InvestorIdeas.com. Investor Ideas reminds all listeners to read our disclaimers and disclosures on the InvestorIdeas.com website, and this podcast is not an endorsement to buy products or services or securities. Investors are reminded that all investments involve risk and possible loss of investment. Investor Ideas does not condone the use of cannabis except where permissible by law. Our site does not possess, distribute, or sell cannabis products.